Joe Biden and Donald Trump are two old farts well past expiration that don't have any business running the United States of America. That is absolutely ridiculous that these are the best people that somehow we ended up with as president of the United States. Those of us who live in reality can admit this fact, right? But this country is so tribal. We have one side of the country that will look at, oh, look at Joe Biden. Look what he's got notes and he's an old guy and he's falling apart, right? And then when Donald Trump does the same damn thing, somehow they didn't have anything to say. And when you point out the same old man stuff that old men do, and they're both old men, both old men sex predators, in my view, they act as if, when did Trump say that? When did Trump? Like they're shocked. Trump, the guy, the buffoon who says the most ridiculous things all the time. Somehow, people that like him, they're always shocked when they learn that he said something crazy, which sounds just like the type of stuff he says every day, right? And then you have folks on the left who, when Trump was president, oh, hey, look, he paused in the middle of a sentence. Oh, look, he said covfefe. Oh, his brain is falling apart. Two hands, one glass. Two hands, one glass. Right? Look at him walking down. He's going to fall. He's such an old guy. He's losing his marbles. And then we have Joe Biden as president, who is another frail, mildly competent, perfect dementia candidate. Those same people like David Pakman, who had all that stuff to say about Donald Trump, which they should have said because Donald Trump was embarrassing and should have never been president of the United States. And it's a sickness in this country that we have many people that think he was the best president of the United States. This country has absolutely lost its mind. But half the country thinks it's only the other half that's lost their mind, and the other half think it's the other half that's lost his mind. But I got news for you. Both of you guys have lost your mind. Biden is crazy, but I didn't notice how crazy Trump was. Oh, Trump is crazy, but I don't notice how crazy Biden is. Look at the notes on Biden's card. Offshore wind drop by sequence of events. You enter the Roosevelt room and say hello to participants. You take your seat. Please enter. Press enter. I need help myself. I'm getting old myself. I'm getting up there. You give brief comment. Press depart. You ask Liz Schuler, President AFL, a question. Note, Liz is joining virtually. You thank participants. You depart. So dishonest scumbags in right-wing media, such as this buffoon, who is happy to point out these issues with Biden, but was silent under Trump, who would have a man who would absolutely just spit on our Constitution. He would have that man in office again. A man who would use the Department of Justice to steal an election. This guy would support him in office absolutely. This guy, right? He would go as far as, and this is the thing you see with partisan left and right-wing media, right? You have a situation that's bad in itself, right? It's very, very bad in itself, but there's this greed for sensationalism, right? So you have something like just the fact that he's got this note card that says the things that he says, like that's enough, right? That's a bad look. But that's not good enough for him. He wants to maximize the clicks, right? These people have no souls. They got no integrity, like most of these YouTubers and mainstream media. No soul, no integrity. They don't give a rat's ass. It's anything for views and clicks and how much attention can I get. What can I say and how can I say it to maximize the money in the bank? Shorty, what you think? He acts as if the entire thing is absurd. The very existence of this type of card is absurd. When in reality, the problem is not the card itself. I would expect the president to have tools like this. If I were president, I would hope that my staff would present me with such a card because I would have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things on my mind, right? president of a country like the United States of America. That's a big responsibility. I would be very, very concerned about the accuracy of what I'm saying and how I'm conducting myself and the image I'm presenting of the United States government as president of the United States. And because I'm not a robot like Zuckerberg, I'm a human, I'm subject to making mistakes. I'm subject to forgetting things. I'm subject to mixing things up. Not quite as much as Trump and Biden because they're so old, but I'm human and I might make mistakes. And I would like to minimize the mistakes. I'd like to minimize the potential exposures to the country in terms of how we look. So please present me with cheat sheets and cards, just like you would see at any conference, right? You go to a conference and a public speaker, you don't think they got a card, right? They might have a PowerPoint presentation, they might have index cards. This is normal stuff, guys. That is how a professional behaves that's doing presentations to a large audience to ensure that they deliver the best possible product. But you're not gonna have any acknowledgement of this reality from a partisan bullshitter like this guy. And you're not going to have that reality from partisan bullshitters on the left when they call out Trump for similar things in terms of having the note cards, right? They've got to maximize the sensationalism. Oh my goodness, Biden's a lunatic. Who's running the country? He's a Manchurian candidate, right? They got to maximize the outrage and the hysteria and the fear mongering, right? Unnecessary, right? I can acknowledge that the fact that he has such a card is not problematic, and that is to be expected from someone in a high-level role like this. This is normal, right? I can admit that because in terms of content, right? That's what we're here. That's the content platform. In terms of content, there is enough value in the truth. I don't need to embellish it, right? I don't need to go hysterical and say he's being controlled and all this kind of nonsense, right? Because I can look at how this is worded and point out how absurd it is and how ridiculous it is how this is written, right? So not the fact that he's got the card, but look at this. Look at the second item. You take your seat. Was he possibly going to take the wrong seat? I mean, it's one thing to have a note because again, a lot of things on my mind, right? And this whole thing, essentially, when you're public speaking, it's a production, right? It's a production. This person comes on, then that person comes on, then they're gonna have a 10-minute break, and then there's music. It's not organic. You don't just go up there and wing it. That's not how we do things in the professional world in terms of when you're trying to be effective in your messaging, right, and whatever product you're delivering. So, absolutely, the president of the United States, he's speaking to the public. It's a production, right? Now, again, dishonest actors would try to exploit that and be like, yeah, it's just all like it's a theater or whatever. And certainly it can be, and it is a lot. But that aside, whenever the president of the United States, any president of the United States, speaks to the American people, it's a form of production. I don't mean that in a facetious way. I just mean, again, this is how it is when anyone is speaking to a large group and is doing it professionally and effectively, or wants to strive to be effective in how they deliver things, right? So you have things that are timed. You're going to do this, then that. This person comes in. They may practice. You may have rehearsals depending on the level of the production, right? So the idea of having this outline of like this, and then you take your seat. The problem comes in these highlighted words. You, okay, fine, take your seat. Again, was there a chance, whoever wrote this, they thought that Biden might take somebody else's seat? When you emphasize words like this, you're making sure that they're not missed, right? This is a critical detail that I want to make sure that you don't miss. When you're taking the seat, take your seat. That's the kind of thing that you say to someone who has some form of dementia, right? Potentially. I'm not even trying to be facetious here. I would wonder if that's the kind of situation we're dealing with. I mean, we have other members in government who, many of their staff have admitted that they seem to have signs of early dementia. Now, outside of the Republican Party, what kind of people would dare say that if they even thought that? So we're not going to hear that from many folks on the left in terms of Joe Biden. But if, he's showing signs of dementia, people who work closely with him, they will be aware of this, right? They may not say it, they may not admit it, they may not talk about it, but they're going to be aware of it. So when they're doing their jobs, they're going to take that into consideration. We're dealing with someone that seems to have early signs of dementia, right? And then I have people in my family who suffer from that, so I have a little bit of understanding of what kind of things can go down. So I can understand if people in the administration realize that Biden has some signs of dementia, but dare not say anything about it, they're not going to ignore it also in how they conduct their jobs in terms of how they're interacting with Joe Biden. If you think Joe Biden is losing his mind and you work with him, you're probably not going to say anything, but you're going to act as if your feelings are accurate. I mean, if you truly feel he's losing his mind, you're probably not going to ignore that. Right? You're going to ignore it in terms of telling other people, but you're going to shape your conduct in such a way. Right? So you're going to try to compensate for the certain risks that come from a person with dementia. So potentially something they might do is take the wrong chair, right? They just get caught up in this robotic mode, and you say take chair, and they just see the first chair they see, they grab it. So if you know in your mind that's a possibility, then when you're writing these notes, you're going to try to compensate for the certain flaws of Biden's mental state. And I wonder if that's what this is. Like, why you got to stress your seat, right? Comment below. Please tell me. I want you guys to give me a logical explanation as to why someone felt the need to emphasize which chair Joe Biden's supposed to take. What other answer could there be? What would Joe Biden think without you specifying that? If you didn't highlight that and make Biden focus on it because you highlighted it, where could Joe Biden end up in terms of in his mind? Right? What do you think? Give me a logical reason other than he's potentially losing his marbles. Why you would need to specify that detail, right? It says press enters. You give brief comments. The you stuff is fine when you're under a lot of pressure. You're speaking to a large crowd of people, and the stakes are very high. I mean, you're speaking to the world essentially. I mean, the country first, but you're speaking to the world as well. I mean, especially in this environment, any tiny mistakes are going to be highlighted and seized upon. You wanna minimize again the risk of any mistakes. So emphasizing stuff that he's doing just so it's very, very clear, leaving no room for error. In the moment, a lot of things on your mind, you're multitasking and thinking about what the next thing you're gonna say, and then in that split moment, you interpret something incorrectly. It says give brief comments, and your brain. I mean, it happens, right? You interpret that as like someone else is going to give comments, right? At the moment that you're supposed to give brief comments, you see someone walking up to the stage, and maybe they're going to be. That was the plan. They're supposed to be next to you because right after you're done, they're going to speak. But in the moment, you look at your card and it says give comments, and then you see someone walking up. They end up at the podium before you. And your brain processes that instead of the actual word, your brain processes that they're going to give comments. And then you're standing there looking like a fool, nodding your head and like, okay, all right, So by it emphasizing you give brief comments, that helps to eliminate that possibility. Because when you read it, even somebody walking up there and you see the you highlighted, that's going to trigger, it's going to be louder in your mind to like, I'm the one giving comments. And then you might even think, even if you get a little confused, like, but he's going up there. But no, but it says you, right? And then you go up there, right? So that's fine. But the your seat, who else's seat is he going to grab, right? So the you give brief comments, whatever. You ask Liz, whatever. You thank participants, whatever. You depart. That's fine. To be honest, wow. Now that I actually looked through it, the idea of the note card and I am human, so I was listening to this bullshitter. So he's probably did affect me a little bit. Like propaganda is something that is very very powerful in terms of affecting how you think, right? So even me knowing better, I listened to some of his video and I guess some of that seeped in, and I already don't like Biden, and I already look at him as incompetent and well past expiration. So I got my own biases, and then he goes in and he's enforcing them. And this is the effect, right? So even me, I'm being affected by it. So I already don't like the guy. I think he's incompetent, and he's talking about this thing, no guy, where, I'm not gullible to the point of accepting everything he's saying. I realize he's being over the top and ridiculous and dishonest because he wouldn't have said this about Trump. But I still had this I think a little bit over the top feeling about this card because again, now that I'm reviewing it again, it's only the second item that's really that's weird. That your seat. Um, Now even that I could be reading into it, and I do admit again I have biases against Biden. Whoever wrote this could be more about them than it is about Biden. People have different styles of communications. There's a lot of potential explanations to it, but just logically, I think it is a valid thing to consider if the reason that is worded that way is because of potential signs of dementia in Joe Biden. We've seen some of his conduct already. I mean, and he is up there. Dementia is a big problem in this country for older folks. So none of that is, just like lab leak, right? Is that you got to be consistent, man. Lab leaks are not crazy idea, right? There've been several lab leaks, right? And then you look at the evidence and you're like, I don't know if this thing came from the lab, but that's not a crazy idea. But you have partisans who were in the little echo chambers and they're like, oh, lab, it came out of the lab. What are you talking about? You're some kind of conspiracy theory. But use that same logic here. We don't have any. You know, I haven't heard anything from any doctors. I haven't heard any official diagnosis of Joe Biden. But you look at the body of evidence. You look at his conduct. Look at his behavior. Look at his age. Look at some of the things that he said, and then you look at something like this and you say, well, I don't have strong evidence that that's why it's written that way, but that's a logical assessment to make that maybe that's why it was written that way. But the objective approach is since I don't know anything about who wrote this, I don't have um, other such cards to look at for reference. Like, I'm not in that world. What do typical cards like this that are given to presidents, what do they normally look like? For all I know, this is the standard protocol of how they write it. Like, that's a thing that they do, right? There's certain industry things that may not seem normal to you, but in the industry, they do it that way for a certain reason, right? And it may seem weird to you, but it's like a tradition or whatever it is. So for all I know, this is how they write the cards. And maybe the person who writes the cards, I don't know. There's so many different angles to look at this. But I would say thinking that it could be because of Joe Biden's mental performance is not a crazy idea. It's something that I would be highly suspicious of, but I don't have enough information to really go too far on that. But it is a little crazy the way that is written, regardless of whether it's tradition or not. Tell me your thoughts. This is Debate Me Channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.